Good morning, Magic! I'm Gavin Verhey from Wizards of the Coast. Zendikar Rising pre-release weekend is just around the corner. You can go to your local game store and pick up a pre-release pack to build a sealed deck with. So how should you build a Zendikar Rising sealed deck, you ask? Well, today I'm going to crack open some packs and do it myself. Let's walk through it. Step 1. Crack the packs. Lotus Cobra, old buddy, old pal. Good to see you again. Felidar Retreat, but in the new showcase frame. That is pretty sweet look. Check out this foil island. I love the new art on this, and man does the foiling look good. Ancient Green Warden. This card brings back good memories. It was actually the first card I ever drafted when playtesting Zendikar Rising. Woohoo! Foil Bright Climb, Grim Climb Pathway. This thing is gorgeous. Wow. This is going to go right into one of my commander decks. Ah, yes. The hotly debated Wayward Guidebeast. Is it amazing? Is it unplayable? I guess time will tell. Anyway, you get the idea. There's some sweet cards. Step 2. Sort by color. So what I normally do here is sort all of the cards by color, then I go through each color and pull out the cards I want to play the most to see which color has the best cards. Even if, say, red has the most cards, it doesn't do you any good unless there are cards you actually want to play. Now, there are three main things that I'm looking for here. In order, they're bombs. These are cards that are just really powerful and can end games on their own. Often they're rares. Removal spells. Limited is defined by removal, and being able to kill off your opponent's strong creature is very important. And evasion. Games will often go on for a while, and being able to attack in the air while the ground is stalled up is really important. So then after doing that, I decide on usually two colors I want to play, like this. White and blue. Let's do this. Step 3. Choosing your cards. Alright, so you've narrowed it down to two colors, but what now? It's time to choose the cards to put into your deck. Traditionally, you'd want to find about 23 cards to play, and then add in 17 lands. But Zendikar Rising switches that up a little bit. First of all, it has landfall. This means that even late in the game, it's awesome to draw a land sometimes. And in older Zendikar sets, often it was right to play 18 or even more lands. Second of all, the set has kicker. This means you want a lot of lands around so you can kick your spells. And finally, to make things really tricky, it has these modal double face cards. They're a spell on one side and a land on the other, and you can pick which side you want to play. Is it a land? Is it a spell? What do you do here? The first question I ask myself is, do I expect I'll play it more as a spell or as a land? For example, with this card, you'll use it as a spell a lot. It's a pretty strong removal spell, and the land is a backup option. But with other cards, you're probably going to be more likely to play it as a land as opposed to a spell. Without additional context on your deck, and there's always additional context on your deck, the first one in my deck I'm usually counting as a spell. I'm happy to play 18 lands a lot of the time in this format anyway, so kind of treating it as a spell that I could play as a land sometime is pretty fine. But if I'm going to play a bunch of them, like say 4, I'm going to count them as half a land apiece, and still try and hit 18 lands in my deck. So for an example, I might play 16 lands and 4 of these. But I can't stress enough, this is really context dependent. It depends on both what the modal double-faced card is and what your deck looks like. So really I leave it to your best judgment to figure it out, but as a really rough rule, counting it as half a land will usually get you there. So as I'm starting to lay out the possible options for my deck, I'm going to put them out in terms of mana curve. A mana curve is really important for sealed deck building. The idea here is you don't want too many cards that are really cheap to cast because then you'll have nothing to do late in the game. But similarly, you don't want too many cards that are expensive to cast because then you'll have nothing to do early in the game. Right down here below are about the number of cards you want at each mana cost. And of course, it's rough and this can be adjusted a lot, especially with modal double face cards running around, but it's a good starting point. Another big thing I do as I'm laying out cards is to look for cards that will synergize well together. In Zendikar, we have both tribal as well as the party mechanic, which care a lot about specific other classes, so keep an eye out for those. Another big question I ask is, what kind of deck am I building? Is it a slower deck? Is it a faster deck? What kind of cards am I going to want here? And then I try and find things that will complement it. Okay, so now let's take a look at what I built.
It's a blue-white tempo deck with some great flyers to help close out the game. For bombs, it's got Felidar Retreat. This is a really powerful card. You play it out on 4 mana and then make another 2/2 every turn or pump your stuff. And even though it's only an uncommon, this Merfolk Falconer is really powerful. 5 mana for a 4/4 flyer is a really good price, and the fact that it gives you a bonus when you kick a spell is awesome. And speaking of kick spells, for synergies, I've got a bit of a kicker package going on here with this Coralhelm Chronicler, and I looked for some other kicker cards to put in the deck. We've got Tazim Royal Mage, Skyclave Sentinel, Field Research, Bubble Snare. These are all mostly cards I would play on their own. The Skyclave Sentinel I might consider cutting, but I'm playing it because of the Coralhelm Chronicler. I've also got a little bit of tribal rolling around here. I've got a Tended Healer, which wants to care about clerics and is really powerful if you do, and some party stuff as well. Just some light party stuff that's totally fine without party. Skyclave Plunder is just a 5 mana draw 3 cards without party, which I would play normally, but the fact that it will allow me to scry potentially too is really nice. And then I do have one modal double face card in my deck. This could be your takedown. And actually, it's a really great fit here because this is a deck that wants to be able to play creatures and attack and draw out a lot of them, but also it wants lands for things like this Felidar Retreat. So the ability to have either a land or a spell is going to be really good for this deck. Now, one thing in particular I want to call out is how I did the mana curve here. If I'm going to cast that spell on that turn most of the time, I put it up here, and if I'm going to cast it later on, I put it down here. There's a couple weirdos, like once again the modal double face card, but that's how I laid out my cards. So for example, the creatures are up here in Felidar Retreat because I'm going to cast it on turn 4, but a card like Practice Tactics or Resolute Strike, I'm not going to be casting on turn 1. That's a later game card. Field Research, Skyclave Plunderer, maybe I'll cast those on curve. I could put them up here, but in general, I just keep them separated down below. This gives you a really good idea of what kind of creatures you'll be able to play on each turn of the game. Overall, I'm pretty happy with the deck. Blue-white flyers is always one of my favorite archetypes, and I feel like I can add in 17 lands and be ready to go.
And there it is, my sealed deck. I'm ready to add in some lands and play. I hope this helps you as you start to build up your sealed decks, and let me know how it goes for you in the comments below. I'll talk with you again on Monday, and in the meantime, may you have a lot of fun with a limited card pool. You got this. So up first, pack number 1. So if I was looking at this as a normal cube, David, I might take the Taiga. Of course, the dual land is always a pretty safe way to go. I might look at Birthing Pod or something like that. But wow, I know this is a little different cube and there's all kinds of fun stuff to be done here. You've also got the Sweeper in Blasphemous Act. It's hard to say no to a Sweeper. Man, so many good options.